You won't believe how many people are walking around right now with a storm raging inside their heads, absolutely convinced that peace is some distant prize they have to win. We spend our lives sprinting toward a horizon that keeps moving, thinking, I'll be happy when the bills are paid, or I'll feel calm once I get that promotion. But what if I told you that peace isn't a destination at all? What if it's more like a flame you're already carrying, but you're too busy looking at the shadows to notice the light? Now, imagine a young man. He looked fine on the outside, but inside, his mind was like a restless bird that couldn't find a branch to land on. He was constantly fluttering between the wreckage of his past regrets and the foggy terrors of his future worries. Have you ever felt that? That heavy stone in your chest when you think about a mistake you made 3 years ago? Or that deep suffocating knot in your stomach when you wonder what might go wrong tomorrow? That was his every waking second. He couldn't eat a meal without his thoughts seasoning the food with bitterness. He could unlie down in his bed without his brain turning into a cinema of his worst failures. He was exhausted, not the kind of tired sleep can fix, but the kind of soul weariness that comes from fighting a war with yourself that you never seem to win. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore. He'd heard whispers of a wise old man, Sadhu, who lived in an ancient temple right at the peak of a steep, winding hill. They said this man didn't just talk about peace, irradiated Italiano. So, the young man began the climb. It was a long old trek, his legs aching with every step, but his desperation was louder than his fatigue. When he finally reached the top, the air was still, and there sat the Sadhu under a massive, ancient tree. The man looked so settled, so grounded, as if he were part of the earth itself. The young man didn't even say hello. He just fell at the Sadhu's feet and sobbed. "Please," he begged. "My mind is a prison. I've tried everything. Prayers, distractions. Keeping busy, but the past haunts me, and the future terrifies me. I haven't known a single moment of quiet in years. Show me the way out." The Sadhu opened his eyes, and there was no judgment there, only a deep, quiet kindness. He stood up, went into the temple, and came back holding a small clay lamp. The flame was tiny, just a little flicker, but it was burning perfectly steady. "I will help you," the Sadhu said softly. "But first, you have a job to do. Take this lamp down to the village at the bottom of the hill, then bring it back up to me. But here's the catch. The flame must not go out. If it dies, even for a second, you have to start all over again." The young man was baffled. He thought, "I'm here for the secrets of the universe, and he's given me a candle." But he was desperate, so he took the lamp in his hands, shielding it as if it were his own heartbeat, and began the descent. Almost immediately, the world started testing him. A sharp breeze whistled through the trees, threatening to snatch the flame away. He instinctively cupped his hands around the clay, his eyes locking onto that little light. He had to slow down. He couldn't run. He couldn't even walk at a normal pace. Every step had to be deliberate. He noticed other pilgrims coming up the path, their faces bright and their voices loud as they greeted him. Normally, he would have stopped to chat or worried about what they thought of him. But today, he couldn't even look up. He didn't respond to their hellos. His entire world had shrunk down to that one flickering inch of fire. The wind picked up, and he had to twist his entire body to shield the light. Children ran past, laughing and shouting, nearly bumping into him. But he stood as still as a statue until the chaos passed. Monkeys chattered in the canopy above, and birds of paradise flew overhead. But he didn't see them. His eyes were glued to the flame. As the path got steeper and the terrain grew rocky, his hands began to ache. His muscles were screaming from the tension of keeping that lamp perfectly level. The sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in these incredible, vivid oranges and purples, the kind of sunset people travel miles to see, but he didn't notice a bit of it. The fragrance of wild jasmine filled the air, but he didn't smell it. He was a man possessed by one single task: keep the flame alive. He reached the village, turned straight back around, and started the grueling climb back up. His legs were like lead. Sweat was stinging his eyes. But he didn't wipe his brow, because that would mean taking a hand off the lamp. He just kept moving, inch by inch, heartbeat by heartbeat. When he finally stepped back into the temple courtyard, the Sadhu was waiting with that same gentle smile. The young man, trembling and gasping for air but triumphant, handed over the lamp. The flame was still burning bright. "I did it," he wheezed. It never went out. The Sadhu took the lamp and looked the boy in the eye. "Tell me, son, what did you see on your journey?" The young man paused, confused. "Nothing, Guruji. I saw nothing but the light." The Sadhu pressed him. "Did you not see the sunset? It was spectacular tonight." The young man shook his head. "No." "Did you hear the birds singing their evening songs? Or the children playing?" "I heard them," the boy replied, "but I didn't listen. I couldn't. My mind was on the flame." Then the Sadhu leaned in. "And tell me, during this journey, did you think about your past mistakes? Did you worry about what might happen tomorrow?" The young man's eyes went wide. It hit him like a bolt of lightning. "No," he whispered. "I didn't. There wasn't any room. I was so busy protecting the flame that the past and the future just disappeared." The Sadhu smiled and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "My son, you have just found the secret. Peace isn't something you find out there. It's what happens when you give the present moment your complete, undivided attention. When you were protecting that flame, the past couldn't touch you. The future couldn't frighten you. You were completely here. You were completely now." The young man felt tears pricking his eyes. It was so simple, yet it changed everything. He realized that peace wasn't about stopping his thoughts or running away to a mountain. It was about living every moment like he walked with that lamp. He understood that his regrets and his anxieties only had power over him because he kept feeding them his attention. He was the one giving them the keys to his head. But if he anchored himself in the now, if he just ate when he was eating, just walked when he was walking, and just breathed when he was breathing, the mental storms didn't have any room to grow. He went back down that hill a completely different man. Whenever he felt his mind starting to drift back to an old argument or a future what if, he'd picture that little clay lamp. He'd bring his focus back to the weight of his feet on the pavement, the sound of the wind, or the rhythm of his own breath. And day by day, that focus became his shield. He realized that anxiety lives in the future, which hasn't happened yet. Depression lives in the past, which is already gone. But life only lives right here, in this very second. We often think we'll find peace once our problems are sorted, or when we've got more money in the bank. But the truth is, the present moment is the only time you actually have any say in. It's the only part of your life that's actually real. Everything else is just a memory or a dream. When you meet this moment with your full attention, you'll find it's always manageable. It's always enough. So, if you're tired of the noise in your head, stop trying to fix the past and stop trying to predict the future. Hold your current moment like it's that delicate flame. If this story struck a chord with you, if you felt that aha moment in your chest, then do us a massive favor. Give this a like and share it with that one person in your life who is struggling with a restless mind. You never know. Your share might be the very lamp they need to find their way out of the dark. Dante, forget to subscribe and join our community here at the channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss our next journey into the deep stuff. Until then, take a deep breath, look around, and just be here. Stay present, stay peaceful, and keep growing. Catch ya in the next one. But the story didn't end on that hilltop. You see, the real test of a flame isn't how it burns in the stillness of a temple. It's how it survives when you walk back down into the wind, the noise, and the chaos of the ordinary world. The young man, let's call him Elias, stepped back onto the dusty path. But this time he wasn't carrying a physical lamp. He was carrying something far more fragile and far more powerful. A new way of seeing. As he descended back toward his village, the ghosts of his old life were waiting for him. Just as he reached the gates, a memory of a bitter argument from 3 years ago tried to claw its way back into his mind. Usually, that memory would trigger a spiral hours of imagining what he should have said, how he could have won, and the crushing weight of guilt. But this time, Elias stopped. He took a breath. He felt the rough texture of the stones beneath his boots. He felt the warmth of the sun on his neck. He treated that intrusive thought like a gust of wind trying to blow out his inner light. He didn't fight the memory. He just chose not to feed it his attention. He looked at a nearby flower, noticing the intricate veins in its petals. And just like that, the past lost its grip. He walked into the village market, and it was as loud and messy as ever. People were shouting over prices, carts were rattling, and dogs were barking. In the past, this noise would have made him irritable and anxious, but Elias moved through the crowd with a quiet grace that made people stop and stare. He wasn't rushing to a future destination, and he wasn't dragging a past burden. He was asked, ... there. One of his old neighbors, a man who loved to gossip and stir up drama, ran up to him. Elias, did you hear what they're saying about your family's land? It's a disaster. In the old days, Elias would have spiraled into worry, asking 1,000 questions about a future he couldn't control. But now, he looked the man in the eye and smiled gently. Is it happening right now, in this second? He asked. The neighbor blinked, confused. Well, no, but it might. Elias nodded. Then right now, I'm simply enjoying this walk. Let's talk about the land, when the land needs talking about. He walked away, leaving the man speechless. Elias realized that most people around him were living in a state of mental fever, reacting to things that hadn't happened yet or crying over things that were already buried. Weeks turned into months, and the transformation grew deeper. Elias discovered that the present moment wasn't just a trick to feel Komet, was a superpower. Because he was fully present, he started noticing things others missed. He noticed when his friends were truly hurting, even when they smiled. He noticed the exact moment his work needed a different approach, because his mind wasn't cluttered with yesterday or tomorrow. He had a clarity that looked like genius to everyone else. He became the most effective man in the village, not because he worked harder, but because, when he worked, he only worked. When he rested, he only rested. But then came the ultimate test. A great storm hit the valley, and a fire broke out in the grain. Stores the village's only food for the winter. Panic erupted. People were screaming, running in circles, paralyzed by the fear of a starving future. Elias stood in the rain, and for a split second, the old terror flared up. He saw the flames, and his mind screamed, "We're going to lose everything. What will we do in December?" He felt his inner lamp flicker. He closed his eyes for a single heartbeat. Focus on the breath. Focus on the bucket in your hand. Focus on the next step. He opened his eyes. While others were frozen by the what-ifs, Elias became a machine of pure action. He organized a chain of people, his voice calm and steady. He didn't think about December. He thought about the next gallon of water. He didn't think about the loss. He thought about the person standing to his left. Because he wasn't distracted by the tragedy of the future, he saved the present. That night, as the village sat exhausted but safe, the elders asked him, "How did you stay so calm? Weren't you afraid of the winter?" Elias looked at them, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "Fear is a story we tell ourselves about a time that isn't here yet," he said. I didn't have time for stories. I only had time for the fire. He realized then that the Sadhu's lamp wasn't a lesson in avoidance. It was a lesson in engagement. To be present doesn't mean you don't care about the future. It means you understand that the best way to take care of the future is to give everything you have to the now. Elias eventually returned to the temple on the hill. Many years later, he wasn't a broken young man anymore. He was a teacher himself. He found the old Sadhu, now very frail, still sitting under the same tree. Elias sat beside him in silence for a long time. No words were needed. "Finally," the Sadhu whispered. "Is the flame still burning?" Elias smiled and looked out over the valley, watching the wind move through the grass. "Guruji," he replied, "I realized the flame was never the lamp. The flame was my own awareness, and as long as I am here, the light is everywhere. You see, the secret to an unshakable life is about finding a place where there is no noise or trouble. It is about being so anchored in the current moment that the noise cannot find a place to land inside you. It's about realizing that you are the architect of your own mental peace. You have the power to choose where you place your attention. You can spend it on the shadows of the past, or you can use it to light up the path right beneath your feet. So, as you go about your day today, ask yourself, where is my lamp? Am I shielding it? Or am I letting every passing breeze of gossip, worry, and regret blow it out? Remember, you don't need a temple or a hill to find this peace. You just need to come back. Come back to your breath, Come back to the taste of your coffee. Come back to the person speaking to you. Come back to the reality that right now, in this exact microsecond, you are okay. If you've stayed with me this far, it's because something in your soul is tired of the chase. It is. Because you're ready to put down the heavyweights of yesterday and tomorrow. Take this story as your permission to be still. Share it with someone who is currently drowning in the noise bee, the breeze that clears their fog. And if you haven't yet, join us here by subscribing. We're rebuilding a community of people who are learning to walk through the storm with a steady flame. Leave a comment below with the word present if you're recommitting to guarding your light today. Stay present, stay powerful, and keep growing. I'll see you in the next one. Years passed, and the legend of the man with the internal flame grew beyond the walls of that small valley. Elias had found peace, but he soon realized that peace is not a trophy you put on a shelf. It is a living thing that requires constant, vigilant care. As he moved into his middle years, the world outside began to change. Modernity started creeping in, faster messages, louder demands, and a new kind of social pressure that threatened to blow out the flames of an entire generation. Elias began to notice a new kind of sickness in the people who visited him. They weren't just haunted by a few regrets. They were being suffocated by 1,000 tiny distractions. They came to him with their hands shaking, not from carrying a lamp, but from carrying the weight of everyone else's opinions. They were plugged into a world of endless noise, where everyone was shouting but no one was saying anything. One afternoon, a young woman came to him. She was brilliant, successful, and had everything the world said she should want. Yet she looked as though she hadn't slept in a decade. "Elias?" she whispered. "I try to be present. I try to focus. But there are a million flames to guard now. My job, my status, my family, the news, the constant pings on my phone. How can I possibly be still when the world demands I be everywhere at once?" Elias looked at her and remembered the banyan tree. He realized that the lesson of the lamp had to evolve. He took her to the edge of a fast-running stream nearby. "Look at that water," he said. "The stream is full of rocks, debris, and swirling currents. Most people try to stop the river. They try to grab every leaf and every branch floating by, hoping that if they catch it all, the water will finally be clear. But that is the quickest way to drown." He picked up a stone and dropped it into a deep, still pool at the edge of the stream. You don't need to stop the world, and you don't need to guard a million flames. You only need to become the deep water. When you're shallow, every pebble makes a splash. Every bit of gossip, every urgent email, every social media post is a storm in a puddle. But when you cultivate depth, when your focus is anchored in your own purpose, the pebbles sink to the bottom without disturbing the surface. He told her that the secret wasn't just in what you focus on, but in what you choose to ignore. He taught her the art of the sacred no. In the past, Elias had shielded his flame by cupping his hands. Now, he taught her to shield her mind by building a price of access. He explained that her attention was the most valuable currency on earth, and she was spending it like it was worthless on people who didn't even know her name. "Stop being free to everyone," he told her. "The world will tell you that being good means being accessible. They are wrong. Being good means being whole. And you cannot be whole if you are a 24-hour convenience store for other people's drama." As she listened, Elias realized his own journey was entering a new phase. He started a school of quiet action. He didn't want people to just sit and meditate. He wanted them to move through the world with the same precision he had used during the village fire. He taught the farmers to feel the grit of the soil between their fingers. He taught the builders to listen to the song of the hammer hitting the nail. He taught them that work is not a chore to get through, so you can reach the reward of the evening work as the meditation. The transformation in the village was profound. Because the people were no longer bleeding their energy into the past or the future, the village thrived. The crops were better because the farmers noticed the subtle signs of pests before they became a plague. The buildings were stronger because the architects weren't distracted by ego or greed. The relationships were deeper because when two people sat together, they were actually there. There were no ghosts at the dinner table. But the world outside didn't like this quiet power. A powerful merchant from the city came to the village, wanting to build a massive, noisy factory that would destroy the valley's peace for profit. He came with lawyers, papers, and a voice that boomed like a drum. He tried to rattle the elders, threatening them with poverty if they didn't comply and promising luxury if they did. Elias stood at the back of the room. He didn't shout. He didn't get angry. He watched the merchant the way he had watched the flickering flame years ago. He saw the merchant shaking hands, his darting eyes, his desperate need for more. Elias realized the merchant was the most miserable man in the room. He was a man whose inner flame had been extinguished by greed long ago. When the merchant finished his loud speech, the room went silent. All eyes turned to Elias. He walked forward, his footsteps silent on the wooden floor. He looked at the merchant not with hatred, but with a deep, crushing compassion. "You talk of the future," Elias said softly. "You talk of what we will have in 5 years. But can you tell me the color of the bird that is singing outside this window right now?" The merchant blinked, startled. "What? No. Who cares about birds? We're talking about millions of... If you cannot hear the bird..." Elias interrupted. "You are already deaf to your own life. You are trying to sell us a better tomorrow when you haven't even arrived at today. We decline your offer. Not because we fear the future, but because we are already satisfied with the now." The merchant was baffled. He couldn't fight this. You can fight anger with more anger. You can fight greed with competition. But you cannot fight a person who wants nothing. You cannot rattle someone who is already at home in their own skin. The merchant left, defeated by a silence he couldn't comprehend. That evening, the young woman came back to Elias. "I understand now," she said. "The kindness trap was thinking that I had to give myself away to be worthy. But the power of no is what actually saved the village today. Your silence was louder than his shouting." Elias smiled. He was old now, his hair as white as the snow on the mountain peaks. He realized that his life had come full circle. He had started as a man afraid of his own shadow, and he had become a man who could stand in the sun and not be blinded. He took one last walk up to the temple on the hill. The old Sadhu was long gone, but the banyan tree was still there, its roots deeper than ever. Elias sat in the same spot, closed his eyes, and felt the entire world breathing with him. He realized that the lamp was never about the individual. The more people who guarded their own inner flame, the more the entire world would begin to glow. The shift isn't just about you, it's about a collective awakening. Imagine a world where we stop reacting and start responding. Imagine a world where we value stillness as much as we value speed. Imagine a world where we are no longer available to the noise, but deeply present for the truth. So, as we close this chapter of the story, I want you to look around you. Look at the room you're in. Feel the weight of your body in your chair. Hear the sounds that are actually happening right now. This exact moment is the only place where you have any power. Don't let the merchants of distraction sell you a future at the cost of your present. Don't let the ghosts of the past steal your current breath. You are the guardian of your own light. Hold it steady. Walk slowly. And remember, when you are truly present, the darkness doesn't stand a chance. If this story has settled something in your heart today, take that feeling and use it. Don't just like this, live it. Be the quietest, most powerful person in the next room you walk into. Be the person who doesn't need to shout to be heard. The seasons in the valley continued their eternal dance, but Elias was no longer a participant in the race. He had become the observer. His hair was now the color of the mountain mist, and his skin was etched with the fine lines of 1,000 smiles and 1,000,000 moments of silence. He didn't just teach the power of no or the price of access anymore. He embodied the state of nothingness. He had reached a point where his presence alone as elixir, and his silence was a library of wisdom. One evening, as the sun was dipping behind the jagged teeth of the western mountains, a young boy from the village, the grandson of the man who had once tried to stir up drama about the family land, came up to Elias. The boy was holding a heavy book and looking frustrated. "Master," the boy said, "I have read all the scrolls. I have practiced the breathing. I have set my boundaries, but I still feel like I am trying to be peaceful. When does the trying stop?" Elias gestured for the boy to sit on the mossy roots of the banyan tree. He picked up a handful of dry sand from the ground and held his fist tight. "Look at my hand," Elias said. "The harder I squeeze this sand, the more it escapes through my fingers. The more I try to hold it, the more I lose it." He slowly opened his hand, palm flat. The sand that remained sat perfectly still. "Peace is the same," Elias whispered. "The moment you try to be peaceful, you have created a goal in the future, And as long as you have a goal in the future, you are no longer in the present. You are chasing peace, and anything you chase will run from you. To find the flame, you must stop being the hunter. You must become the candle. The boy looked at the flat palm of Elias. But master, what happens when I grow old? What happens when my strength fades, and I can no longer protect the flame from the wind? Does the peace die with me? Elias looked out over the valley, where the village lights were beginning to twinkle like fallen stars. The greatest secret I ever learned from the Sadhu wasn't how to guard the flame, Elias said, his voice as thin and clear as a silk thread. It was realizing that the flame and the wind are made of the same energy. When you truly reach the center of the moment, you realize there is no you guarding a flame. There is only the light, and light cannot be broken. It cannot be blown up. It can only change form. That night, Elias felt a change in the rhythm of his own heart. It wasn't a flutter of fear or a spasm of pain. It was a slow, deliberate winding down, like the last vibrations of a great bell. He knew his journey in this form was reaching its final paragraph. He didn't call for the villagers. He didn't write a final testament. He simply walked, one last time, to the very edge of the ridge overlooking the entire world. He sat down in the dirt, the same dirt he had collapsed into as a broken young man decades ago. Felt cold air of the coming night. He heard the distant howl of a wolf. He felt the rough bark of the tree against his spine. He remembered every yes he had ever regretted. He remembered every no that had saved his soul. He saw the faces of the takers who had left him, and he felt nothing but gratitude for them, for they were the ones who forced him to build his walls. He saw the faces of the ox and the rabbit, terrial ones, and he felt the warmth of a life well spent in the company of equals. As his breath grew shallower, a final thought tried to enter his minda, ghost of a worry about what would happen to the village once he was gone. Elias smiled. He recognized the gust of wind for what it was. He didn't feed it, he let it pass. He turned his attention back to the sensation of the air entering his lungs for the very last time. It was the most beautiful breath of his life. When the sun rose the next morning, the villagers found him. He was sitting perfectly upright against the tree, his face tilted toward the dawn. It looked as though he were simply listening to a very beautiful song that no one else could hear. There was no struggle in his posture. There was no fear in his expression. He had walked into the final no. The no to life itself, with the same presence he had used to walk through the market. The village didn't mourn him with loud cries and dramatic displays. Instead, they honored him with a week of sacred silence. No shops opened. No arguments were had. For 7 days, the valley was so quiet you could hear the heartbeat of the earth. In that silence, every man, woman, and child realized that Elias hadn't taken the flame with him. He had left it in the way they now looked at each other. He had left it in the way they now valued their own time. The kindness trap was gone. The price of access was understood. The sovereign mind had become the culture of the valley. So, as we end this epic journey, I want you to understand the final lesson of Elias. You are the author of your own ending. Every time you choose the present moment over a past regret, you are writing a better story. Every time you say no to a distraction and yes to your soul, you are building a legacy that will outlast your physical body. The flame is in your hands right now. It's in the way you're breathing. It's in the way you're choosing to spend these final seconds of this video. Don't go back to the noise. Don't go back to the chase. The valley is waiting for you to walk through it with your head held high and your light held steady. You are enough. This moment is enough. The light is everywhere. Stay present. Stay powerful. Stay sovereign. Your time is coming. Keep believing. Keep fighting. Don't just watch. Go out and prove them wrong. Thank you for being part of the journey. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.